Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on how enterprise companies are transforming disruption into opportunities. We're delighted to have so many of you join us live, and I know you'll be glad that you did. My name is Carl Sanchek. I'm the Senior Corporate Innovation Consultant here at Singularity University, and I'm joined by my colleague, Ben King. I have the distinct privilege of moderating today's webinar. First, a few quick housekeeping items before we get started. All participants will be muted throughout the duration of the presentation. This ensures the best audio quality for everyone. During the presentation, if you should encounter any audio issues, please refresh your browser and check your computer's audio settings. Please submit any questions you have at any time during the webinar. Just click the chat button to do so. Lastly, we're recording today's webinar, and we'll share it in a link to you in a follow-up email. That way you can listen to it again and even share it with others who may also be interested. Okay, so let's get started. Today, we're excited to continue SU's Exponential Enterprise Webinar Series. That's all about sharing approaches to innovating and leading in the midst of accelerating change. In today's session, we'll share strategies to help you feel disruptive ideas, overcome internal barriers to adopting technology, and commercialize concepts by spinning out new corporate ventures. We'll save 15 minutes to answer questions at the end of this webinar, but you don't have to wait until the end to ask your questions. Again, you can use the chat button to submit questions as they occur to you. We'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can, time permitting. Quickly about myself. I've worked for a range of businesses from Silicon Valley firms to a large aerospace company. My roles have involved new product development, uncommon partnerships, and corporate innovation. Similarly, my co-moderator, Ben, drove innovation efforts leading to M&A activity and engaged in development strategies with like-minded, non-traditional partners at a global level. This history has given Ben the opportunity to build relationships with some of the most innovative companies, laboratories, and startups. Our experiences and these efforts initially introduced us to today's speakers. That said, our speakers today are Jason Heckathorn, a seasoned entrepreneur and Chief Executive Officer of Forever Oceans, and Kai Clemens, founder and Chief Technology Officer of WeWash. In Jason's backstory, he founded his spin-out business of mobile fish pens using repurposed space technologies. After several successful years, Jason led the approved spin-out of an aerospace business line to today's commercial company called the Forever Oceans Corporation. Meanwhile, Kai's experience in the telecommunications and consumer good industries empowered him to make great strides as an innovation manager of home appliances. He led the creation, ideation, and development of digital business models and digital services for the home appliances industry. We are incredibly fortunate to have such a great panel of corporate innovation experts with us today. Now that you know a little about our panel, please tell us a little about yourselves. As you can see on the screen, we have a quick poll for you to take. Please submit your region. This will tell us where everyone is dialing in from today. This will also be your chance to practice using our polling tool, which we will use again later. Excellent. You can see we have some very geographically diverse participants today. Wonderful. What brings us here today from across the globe is a shared curiosity and passion to how to succeed in breaking boundaries, including the invisible ones within a business. So without further ado, I'll take this opportunity to turn the mic over to my co-moderator, Ben, to set the stage for a pair of the success stories that have found the road to successful disruption. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Carl. To shed some light on the curiosity and passion you mentioned, I'll begin with an introduction to Singularity University. Here we see a slide, and our company's mission is to educate, inspire, and empower leaders to apply exponential technologies to address humanity's grand challenges. And what that means to me is here at Singularity University, we empower leaders with the mindset, skill set, and passion to build breakthrough solutions that leverage exponential technologies. Technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, and digital biology, all to solve the world's biggest problems. To set the stage for our speakers today, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about innovation and disruption. Looking back at April of 2011, it was predicted that in 10 years, 40% of the then Fortune 500 would no longer exist. We've all seen many examples of that today. At the core of this failure, I believe there is an absence of vision and the ability to adapt and change. In looking at the innovation landscape, companies typically define innovation in 3 stages. Stage 1 is your current business, what's going on today or now. This is the evolution as well as the evolution of the core business model. We define this at SU as Horizon 1. What's coming next? What new product development teams are working on? What perhaps is revolution? What fits our companies that we're not currently doing today? We define this as Horizon 2. And we define Horizon 3 as moonshots. These answer the questions such as, what can we begin to develop today against assumptions of the future? And how do we leapfrog disruption? As an example of disruption, and also as a bow to the recent 10-year anniversary of the initial iPhone launch, it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, but in June of 2007, the iPhone launched, and this has been a great example of how a Horizon 3 project disrupted many products all at once. I remember all of these products on the left-hand side of the screen growing up. Have fond memories of my boombox, as an example. My sons don't know this world. The next slide shows disruption of business models. Here are examples of well-known businesses that began disrupting one market and then grew into other non-adjacent markets. Illustrating the impact of that sort of disruption in economic terms, the graph on the right shows a 4-year snapshot of year-over-year sales of Amazon versus traditional retail brick-and-mortar stores. It's not a surprise that the stock market responded the way in which it did when the Amazon acquisition of Whole Foods was announced. Companies in markets that do not pivot and engage with new user experiences and exponential technologies run the risk of being obsolete. And that leads me to the quote of the week. To quote my co-moderator, Carl Sanchek, continuous reinvention is the key to long-term viability. With a necessity for change and growth, I challenge our audience to ask yourselves, how do you seek out and nurture your entrepreneurs? How do you collaborate with uncommon or new partners? And finally, how do you identify and commercialize your Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 projects? Today, we're very pleased to have Jason and Kai with us to discuss how they created new opportunities in their businesses. At this point, I'd like to welcome Jason Heckathorn, CEO of Forever Oceans.
Thank you, Ben. Forever Oceans is a sustainable mariculture technology company. That's really just a fancy way of saying that we do eco-friendly fish farming using robots. As you see, we are a Lockheed Martin spinout. That's where our origin was. And with Lockheed Martin being the largest defense company in the world, it probably doesn't seem real intuitive that that's where an aquaculture company would come from. And so I'm going to be sharing a little bit with you about my personal background, about Forever Oceans, but really I want to focus on the history and the challenges that we experience that are really not uncommon to the entrepreneur experience in general. Like many of you, I have a background in technology and entrepreneurship, but I think there are a few areas of my own background that are a bit more differentiating and important to this story. And so I share these because I think it's worth realizing that any entrepreneurship or spin-out is, to a large extent, going to be the result and the reflection of the people involved. And so personally, I love doing international economic development. And when I look across my career, one of my favorite ventures, as odd as it sounds, is actually an initiative that deploys composting toilets into the huts of people living in the Amazon jungle. It helps clean up the environment there, preserve potable water, and it feels really good to be making people's lives better. I'm also a hands-on conservationist, and I do that mostly in rainforests. And so, as you can probably imagine, when I was a principal at a Fortune 100 company and I had this opportunity to explore an adjacent market that was combining conservation, economic development, and technology from outer space, I was very much at the core of my passions. So at this point, I'd like to take a quick survey from you, if you wouldn't mind sharing where you see your biggest opportunities for adding spin-out value, whether that's new markets, new solutions, or new business models. Great. Really appreciate the feedback. This is insightful. I'm seeing a lot more folks that are seeing solutions and business models, and that's helpful. Obviously, there's different nuances to each of these, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how really each of these played a role in Forever Oceans. Obviously, not every opportunity is going to cross-cut that much, but it's important to know where your innovation has value and where it needs to head. So before we dive into the story too deeply, just a quick bit of background to understand the nature of the business that I'm talking about here. So in some senses, Forever Oceans as a business is really not that much of a departure from F-35. That we offer end-to-end integrated solutions. For us, that includes everything from the robots and the technology to the fish and fish food to smart people to insurance solutions on the business side. And all of that comes together to form an open ocean fish farm. A big part of our offering remains even our core competency of risk reduction in an industry where that's not as common as the one we came from. And so you see some of those themes from our parent company that were of immense value that we took into a new industry. But with that very high-level understanding, I'd like to share a bit more about our history. So it was back in 2008 that Lockheed Martin Aquaculture was originally founded. And, when we look at how was that successful initially, one of the things that I really advocate for and I mentor at universities is to always do pre-sales even prior to a business plan. There's nothing like validating the marketplace. And for us, aquaculture really wasn't any different. That we quickly discovered there was real market pull, and we had contracts and revenue and even profits flowing in almost immediately from the concept. And that was a great validator and a great stimulator for what we had originally envisioned. We did run it for several years as a successful and profitable P&L center, and it kind of brings us to a next transition point and discussion point of what is a good criteria for a spin-out. And obviously it's going to look a little bit differently for each company, but for us it was obvious that there was some huge IP value of things that had seen immense amounts of investment that had value in adjacent markets. I think that adjacency was also important, that it made it easy that it was really fully distinct from our primary and core business, that there was really no conflict or cannibalization or whatnot. And I think it was a real positive motivator that we're going into an industry that really needed a different business model than what our core was used to. That obviously Lockheed and defense contracting doesn't look exactly like commercial aquaculture or fish farming. And so at the end of the day, the important business criteria, I think, for most entities is whether you can make more money outside the mothership than inside. And I give a lot of credit to the leadership at our parent company for recognizing that was the case and wanting to optimize their profitability and our profitability. And so with that realization, it launched us in 2015 to a spin-out process. It was definitely not easy. In fact, we had to build that process as we were going through it, and fortunately that exists for other follow-ons to follow now. But for me, it really highlighted the importance of stakeholder engagement, that we had all the way up to C-level folks that were excited about what we're doing and understanding the value and wanting to help make it happen. Once we completed that, it's allowed us to get to where we are now as a company of Forever Oceans, and we're now on our 5th generation of systems and really focused on commercial growth at this point with financial partners. And I think through that process of really becoming the business we envisioned, it highlighted for us the amount of effort that it takes to do commercial repackaging. Obviously, we came from a defense model where supplemental support contracts are common. We're going to a fully commercial space. I think it's also easy to underestimate the value of support functions in a core business and what it takes to rebuild those. And I think for us it was also definitely a major growth step to transition between the business models, as I've mentioned, to go from typical defense contracting and those business models and those contracts to really what we are now is more of a build and operate model, like people who are in infrastructure projects would be more familiar with. And so all of that together is the history of how we've gotten to where we are now. I will say that it has certainly not been without its challenges, and you guys have probably detected a number of these, but I want to highlight some here that may stimulate questions or thoughts for later on. So one thing we had to deal with was certainly integrating dissimilar domains. The people who breed fish do not necessarily think like people who optimize high-end long-range communications, for instance. And obviously we're blending a number of different domains to come up with an integrated solution. I think anytime you're repurposing a technology in a new market, you've got to understand what the culture of that market is, what's acceptable, what's valuable, and how to apply it. And I think similarly, finding the business model for that and then changing into that business model. None of us really, I think, like change. It's always a little bit scary, and you've got to validate it well. You've got to adapt as you go. I think especially when you're trying to disrupt a large industry. It may not be obvious that seafood is a multi-$100 billion industry. And so for us, looking at how we can help transform that, there are a lot of dynamics that have to be taken into consideration to make sure we're doing that in an optimal way. One of the things that is becoming more and more important for maintaining green reputations, but for us it's really at the core of who we are, is balancing environmental and social concerns. And for us, we're continuously fighting, I think, a wrong idea that we've got to choose between helping people or preserving the environment. And really our whole mission has been about reconciling those and showing that you can do business and make money and feed people while preserving the environment such that you can operate in perpetuity and work sustainably. And so, collectively, again, I would say those are some of the core challenges for us to become what we are today. And again, I think there's a number of those that, as you really look at any spin-out or business, that need to be seriously considered. So I hope that some of this information is helpful to you today. I look forward to questions later on, and I thank the folks at Singularity University for having me today.
Thank you, Jason. That was very interesting, and we look forward to a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. For those on the phone, please use your chat buttons to ask questions at any time. At this point, I'd like to introduce Kai Clemens, the founder and CEO of WeWash.
Hello, good morning, everybody in the U.S. and good afternoon for everybody in Europe. My name is Kai, and I'm the CTO of WeWash. WeWash is a spin-off of Bosch Home Appliances, and as the topic today is transformation, disruption into opportunities, I want to tell the story about how I failed, or better, an idea of mine failed at first, and now it's the hero. And so now we have the story for Bosch Home Appliances to really create a new market and a new business model. So the first what I want to show is a very just an overview what I want to talk about you today. So the first is of course about me, and I want to tell you the story about the different languages. I'm an innovator inside of Bosch. I was an innovation manager for years, and I used a different language. And I faced the situation that I explained my idea to a lot of people, and nobody understands it. So it failed. But it was not easy. But we came back, and I got the support from consultants internally inside the company, and also from externally. So I want to tell that story. And I also want to tell the story that why corporates need so much time to make a decision, and what could be better to make than to start a corporate discussion to go to the startup time, because you could save a lot of time for your new business models. I also want to show how we really saved a lot of time in the development of our disruptive idea, because we use the lean startup approach. I just want to show it on one example. And at the end, I also want to tell you what are the open questions now, since we are done the development, and is there a difference from a spin-off to the startup. So the next thing is quite easy to quite easy. That's just me. That's my way in the business, especially at Bosch. From 2010, I was leading digital innovations, and I was working for brands and companies like Siemens, BenQ, Hella, BSH, and now the white circle is WeWash. You can here see WeWash. Oh, this works fantastic. That's exactly the point where I came from. So I have a background in the telecommunication. I have a background in digital topics with BenQ, and I'm a mechanical engineer. But I'm a digital addicted, and I trained myself in the digital business. And now I can combine all of this knowledge together to create new ideas and innovations. And I can talk with all of the people from one side with the blue colors, also with the white colors, in order to create such an idea. And there it comes from the next slide. I can show you where we started our discussion and why I thought that we have to go to find a solution. And that is a very small sketch, but it's exactly the point where we started the discussion into the company. So there's a point that a lot of companies, they are doing IoT business because they just built in any communication device in their product. So for example, a Wi-Fi. You put a Wi-Fi module inside your product, and then you're saying, oh, now we are IoT and we are digitalized. So that is not really the right way to thinking. And that was here you can show, for example, for a washing machine. The washing machine with a Wi-Fi module, it's a fantastic device. And you can start the washing machine, you can stop the washing machine, you get a notification when your washing machine is ready. So that's fantastic. But think about the user. When you think about the user, he is in his apartment in the 3rd level. He has the washing machine normally inside his flat or his apartment. Normally, that user doesn't need the Wi-Fi connection for the washing machine, because he's directly in front of the washing machine and he hears the sound when the washing machine is ready. So a Wi-Fi connected washing machine makes totally sense when the washing machine is far away from the person who is waiting for an information that the washing machine is ready, or is available. So that means the washing machine, what is in the basement, is that's the right position for a washing machine. But then you see there is a complete problem that you don't have a connection. You don't have a connection directly to your mobile phone. And just to put a Wi-Fi hotspot inside that place, it's quite expensive, and it's also very dangerous because anybody wants to hack it and wants to use it for any illegal things, or just steal it, and you don't have it for that. So that means for both cases, a Wi-Fi washing machine makes not so much sense. And we said, okay, that's something we have to find a way to go to satisfaction, because there is no satisfaction for the user when they have it in the basement, and there is a big pain because they also don't want to go to places like this too long. They don't want to stay too long on such a places, and of course they don't want to go too often. They want to know there is a washing machine available. They want to know when the washing machine is ready in order to pick it up. So what I created is a technical concept how we can have in such a difficult places an internet connection just for M2M communication. And this is what I did. I create such a concept. I introduced that to our responsible people for innovations, and before I introduced it to the people, I did a lot of investigation what kind of potential that is. That's in German now, but the concept you can understand. In the middle is the name of my technical concept, the My Little Hotspot. The My Little Hotspot, and then I show a lot of opportunities and chances, new markets, and so on. And I presented to a lot of people inside the company, and I just overwhelmed all of them. Nobody really understands what kind of sense it makes for the company, and I really failed totally. So that means nobody wants to have it, and I didn't sort it internally in the corporate. And what I understand then was, because that was the normal sentence and the normal statement I got from my colleagues. That is complete, My Little Hotspot, that's complete out of our core competence. We don't know how to do it. We even don't know who can do that. And tell me the business model. And of course, we have already Home Connect. And as you can see, Home Connect is fantastic technology and works fantastic for coffee machines and all of the other products. But for a dedicated washing machine inside the basement, it doesn't work, what I explained already to the beginning. So in that point, I saw nobody understands my approach. So from this point, I was quite sure I had to rethink the idea, and I had a big support by a championship inside our company, and I explained our idea, my idea to them, and he met other people. They have another business idea about washing and drying, and he said, yes, but you know, in the basement you don't have a connection. And they said, yes, that's true. And he said, okay, but I know somebody who has an idea and a concept how to do that in a cheap and a reliable way. So we met each other, and we found out that we are complete different personalities. And we also find out how we can use that to convince all the people inside the corporate about our idea. And it works fantastic. But in the beginning, we just said, let's sit together, let's rethink everything what we have, and build a story new that we can explain it from the consumer-centric way from that point. So we used the chance to go to Austria. It's a nice place just to spend a few days far away from the corporate, far away from the company, far away from any crisis and any task you have, just to sit down and think about the business canvas and the business models, what we have seen already here in the presentation from Ben from the Singularity University. So we created a lot of cases what we can use. And for technology and also for washing and drying. And it's really funny because at the end, we made that weekend, a longer weekend, in order to find all the way, and we really came back to my very first thought to say we have a problem with washing machines in the basement. So I started the whole 2 years before, I started with that idea about washing machines in the basement, and after the whole process, we came back again to washing machine in the basement, even when I made a lot of investigations in the meantime between what is the potential of the general idea. So we found out my idea with the My Little Hotspot, nobody's really interested in. It's enabling technology, but where the people are interested in, it's they want to wash, they want to dry, and they want to use it with a mobile phone, and they want to get notification, and they want to have a digital payment for that. That's exactly what they want. So that means when I see the whole process over the last years, so the first idea, it was 2014, then I created a technical concept here until between 2014 and 2015. So, and when I see the whole process from there to here, then I see it approximately, I would say, 2.5 years without any decision. And when I see when I look on the time when BSH or Bosch Home Appliances made the decision to do it, it just needs really a few weeks and months to have decision points here. You can see where you can really judge about that idea or if that makes sense or not. So we have we created the first prototypes a few weeks after we said yes, we will do that. Our first MVP was still in February, and we make the field test in order to check our ideas and our business models. So we got the user feedback. We found out that we have to build not just one product, we have to build a lot of products and different variances. And each of these fields was presented also to our shareholders, and they understand it, and they said they have the possibility to say stop or go ahead, and say luckily and good, they said go ahead. So even then, on the end of the last year, we got also the cost indication. How much will it be? Because it needs time to learn about that, and so on. And when we see this in that way, I can also show you why we just need approximately 1.5 years to have now the release of the product on the market, and even the release of the safety. This is what we got a few weeks ago. So we can sell it now on the product on the market. And what we are used is a lean startup approach. At first we made the first version made by Banana Bone. Then we said, okay, let's make the investigation for the field test. Let's just use products from the market and build an own app for that and just exchange products. And we found out some of that product is not well as we needed, and we did our first own prototype. We improve it, and we always use product under the market, and until we saw at the end our own product. And this own product is now going from the plug and the wall box going to the market launch. And the whole time what we did is we made field tests. Field tests, you can see 4 field tests and always running field tests just to learn. We have used the agile development in the software. I don't want to explain here because everybody understands that. That's common sense in the software industry. But even in the hardware industry, we used an agile moment. So we investigated, we developed everything, and then we analyzed it, and then we changed it. That was the fastest way what we can do in hardware design. And we now are on that point. And after all, I can show you some impressions what we have got a big support from our corporate company, because we could use places from BSH, from Bosch Home Appliances, where they supported us to make the field test. And this is what a lot of startups will not have. We have the possibility to use such cool places to invite people to make very long analysis and so on. And what I can show you instead of the beginning of that part of that presentation, that are places what we have now. You can see the boxes here. That are our V-Wash boxes, and we are using common washing machine also from competitors. We can connect and we can give that service to our customers. And that is completely new for BSH. They normally just sort home appliances and has no really such a digital business available. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai.
You're welcome.
And thanks to both of our speakers. I would like to start by asking a couple of questions and starting our Q&A round while our co-moderator, Carl, is grouping the participants' feedback. So I'll hand it off to him in just a moment for questions from our audience. First question I'd like to ask is for Jason. I can think of several potential implications or challenges that you may have had in working with government through Lockheed Martin in taking a technology out and bringing it for a new purpose, which was a fascinating purpose, by the way. What has been your biggest challenge to overcome with that, and how did you overcome it?
Good question. I would say for us it was definitely bridging the cultures that we spanned, and so that was everything from people in defense to technology to venture investment to mariculture-based food production. And I think a lot for us was rooted in the partners that we picked and worked with, that we were fortunate to really have good partners, internal and external, on all fronts, and that we really stayed focused on our mission of building a sustainable mariculture technology company, optimize the profitability of that, how to protect the environments we worked in, and I think really focusing on that mission and having people that believed in that and wanted to achieve it was instrumental. So I think just like if you're building a company from scratch, make sure you pick your partners wisely and that you're all aligned in whatever your mission is.
Thank you. The one other follow-up question I have for you, in looking at the slide that you presented on the history of timeline, I'm curious, from the time that you had this idea, so the time you took and spun it out into Forever Oceans, can you talk about that timeline and how long that took from ideation to commercialization?
Sure. That was about 7 years that we were running it internally, and so we did not form it with the intent to spin it out. We formed it during the time of sequestration. We happened to have a PhD in remote sensing phenomenology that was one of our experts in space technologies, and he'd grown up a fisherman in Alaska and really understood the challenges of the industry and the opportunities to apply the technology that we had. And so really, the 7 years were really exciting, that we were building a line of business. And then when we saw the potential to grow the business more rapidly, that it had a certain potential internally, when we saw the market potential, if we put it in a commercial form factor, that was even more appealing. And so that really kicked things into high speed. And executing the spin out and everything we've done since then has been great. So that was effectively what that time period was spent on.
Okay, very good. Thank you. For Kai, I'm curious with the similar question as far as idea to inspiration. You talked a lot about in your charts, about when you first had that idea, but could you sum up the time that it took from when you had that initial idea for the initial idea was the My Little Hotspot, correct?
Yes, the initial idea was the My Little Hotspot. Completely technology.
So
Exactly. So from that initial idea, how long did it take to get the approval to spin out into WeWash?
It was approximately 2.5 years, and it was just a few times that I would say it failed because nobody was really interested. And the point was what I found then, it's the support from external guys. They supported me to sell that idea better in the internal way. And this is exactly what I also want to express as an entrepreneur. Sometimes you are just not able to talk to people inside your company because they are too close to you and they don't understand that you are thinking in a different way as they are doing. So I used external support from consultants, and they supported me to sell that story internally so that everybody understands that. So that's just, for me, it was very interesting to see that way, but I was thinking, is it wrong, is it right, and so on. I just say I would say it's human. And so since you have to handle with that and you have this challenge in your company, I would suggest if you find people you're thinking they have the potential of ideas and good to create such a business and business models, just give them the support what they need just for dedicated time. I can tell you from my point of view, it was there were people, they are saying, wow, Kai has great ideas. We don't know what is the potential and we don't understand it now. So let's give him 2 consultants on his side for a few weeks just to finalize his idea. And that was the right way for me to go that business now.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you for that answer. I'd like to open up a question to either Jason or to Kai. As entrepreneurs from corporations, do you have any advice to us, our audience on the phone, whether they be decision makers or other entrepreneurs that are looking to get their seed idea out, and blow it up into its own corporation?
Yeah, this is Jason. I'd be glad to provide a couple of thoughts on that. I mean, I think one important thing for getting traction with any new idea in a successful existing climate is to really cover the downside case as well, to make sure early on you're not asking for a lot, you're not risking a lot, you're really offering upside. That makes it a lot easier for people to say yes. I think the other important thing as you're starting to develop that house is to not let perfect get in the way of far better than good enough for a leap ahead. At least for me, it was always a temptation. A very successful company, you want to do it perfectly. And like to be a little bit more specific for us, there's multiple ways to do aquaculture without getting into detail. There's advantages to doing it on land. There's advantages to do it in the ocean. And we really just tried to stay agnostic on the effect that, in our farms, we do some land-based for cultivating parent fish. We use ocean for grow out because it's scalable. Each of those have their own challenges, and we've had to mitigate them and combine it into a hybrid that is very immediately effective, and it's something that we can do today. And I think it's important because we could have spent decades chasing a perfect aquaculture, but the fact that we were able to be better than what else has been done and to put points on the board quickly allowed us to keep moving forward. So those are some of my perspectives and lessons learned.
Okay, very good. Kai, do you have any insights on there or any advice?
I just can say when I think about this, I was working for Bosch, and I was in that case thinking for Bosch, and a lot of people were thinking, even in discussion, that all the ideas we created in the digital innovation management, not all, but a few of them, they just doesn't belongs to the corporate. And this is what I was always really disappointed, and why the people are thinking that any digital idea doesn't belong to the own company. So you just maybe are not able to recognize it now, but normally the digitalization will not stop because you just don't understand it. So from my point of view, I was really happy to do it with Bosch, and I would also be happy to do it internally. But there was the right decision to say that is a very new topic, and when you want to make a very new way, please step out, and you get our support. And do it in the other way, because we know when we use our internal processes to speed up such a very new disruptive business model, we were not able to do that in that time as you can do it on the outside.
Very good. I have to say I would love to ask you many more questions, but I would like to reserve the remaining time today for audience questions. I understand we have quite a few. So at this point, I would like to thank you both for your participation today and hand it over to Carl to moderate the remaining of this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, we've received several questions from the audience. Thank you for participating, and congratulations to both of our speakers. You should know that our audience thanked Jason for his service to our oceans and the ecology, and there were well wishes expressed to the WeWash team. Having said that, now I'd like to share a few of the actual questions received. I'm going to start with you, Jason. Everything you do now as Forever Oceans, would it have been possible if it stayed as part of Lockheed Martin?
Cool. That's an interesting one. I think the short answer is probably not, but I'd like to clarify a little bit, because I also think about it in the opposite direction. I don't think anything we're doing today would be possible without our heritage, which is part of the benefit of entrepreneurship, of looking at what you have. Large companies obviously have a lot of resources and a lot of capability, and I hesitate to put limitations on what's possible in those kind of climates. But I think you have to look at what any given corporate culture is good or even optimal at doing, and what it's not optimal at doing. And so when I look at our specific situation, obviously Lockheed's the world's leading defense contractor, and that's not aquaculture. And so, could they have kept a very successful internal practice? Absolutely. But I think that was part of the maturity of the spin-out decision in this situation, is to realize that having a culture and an entity that's focused on being optimized for that was really the best decision. And, what we've been able to do over the last 18 months, time-wise, customer adoption-wise, it has really accelerated a lot because of that being, our core focus and our core culture. And so, I value our heritage, but I also value the fact that we get to be focused on a single goal now, and what that's allowing us to do in terms of acceleration.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jason. I'm going to direct this next question to Kai. Kai, this is relative to post or spin out. Did you use any technologies to determine what was the best interval of time to get feedback regarding your product? And if so, which technologies did you use? I believe the question was asking after a bit about your consumer testing and feedback practices. If you could share those.
So I have a technical background, and I can say I just find a team surrounding me. They also have an understanding how to do that. So what I can say, we use common platforms. They are available on the market already to make the prototypes. We just doesn't matter. We just doesn't be aware on the size, on the appearance. We just did it in order to make it. So, and what I can say, the prototyping was not the problem in the time. The most time-consuming was really to convince people about that idea inside the corporate. So the prototyping was just a few months. I used a few students from the university in Munich. We stepped out of the company. We used the room outside of the headquarters just to build our prototypes on the university and to make the proof of concept. And that was really not the time. What was the time-consuming point? So and for the first MVP, we used just products, just what we can find on the market. We just screw them up and we opened them and changed some parts and to our what we need and made our we made our prototypes and MVP there. So from my point, I would say there's not necessary to have new platforms and so on. There's everything available and so on. For the corporates, it's more important to understand, to recognize people, they have such an idea, to give them an environment to test it and to make the first real decision points like I show you in my time plan, so that you can really make a decision. Otherwise, you will just starting discussions over discussions.
Thank you for that feedback. It's interesting, your approach, and it makes sense. Just as a quick follow-up to make sure we've covered it, so you did a lot of the feedback. Did you have any formal testing with your focus groups or anything of that nature after
yes.
a rollout of the MVP?
Yes, we have one of the founders is a marketing specialist and an expert, and he also makes the same as I do for the technology. He's doing the same for the marketing. We used experts, and we also asked in our mother company if they can support us. So they are experts, and it's also important for corporates, if they make such a spin-off, just don't let them alone. Please just be a supporter of them. So, and what we found out, as soon as we were a spin-off and we were outside the corporate, we got a lot of support from people. They just want to be part of us. And that was really a great feeling that even in the mother company, the people just want to support you because they want to be part of that spin-off. And this is what we are used also for the marketing procedures. But I'm a technical guy. I'm not so deep inside the marketing topic. And I also use for the technical topics.
Understood. Thank you. Jason, this next question is to you. There were a number of questions, but I'm going to focus on one that I think has a general investment nature to it. There was a healthcare business as part of our audience that asked about your investor's strategy. The audience member has a mix of support, including the C-levels. What strategy did you use for timing the engagement for different levels of investors? And would you recommend timing the engagement of these different level investors, A to C?
Really good question. So I think one of the challenges of being a spin-out rather than a startup is that most investors are very familiar with how startups work and very kind of concrete bins of here's the criteria for this phase and what a company should be worth and what it should have achieved. And when you're a spin-out or entrepreneur, you will look very different, to be honest. You'll have disproportionate strengths versus weaknesses. And so I think reconciling that to be more comfortable for investors is a big challenge. And so as you're looking at the timing on that, obviously you want to look at how much funding you need, how that would align with the categorization of people that fund startups typically, and then find a way to try to reconcile your offering to be more comfortable for them. So for us, when we did some of our earlier rounds, there were some additional investor protections that were inserted. We obviously had a bit more maturity and could offer those and use it to show value. But I think more important than the nuances of what we did was the fact that those helped to align with the expectations for investors at that stage. And so I would just focus on looking at what class of investors would provide the type of funds you're looking for, and then what would you need to do to create an offering that will feel normative to them.
Thank you for that answer. It's interesting to hear specific results and how you addressed it and what you think about that. Last question from the audience, and we're getting tight on time. It's unfortunate we had a lot of great questions today. And I'll open this to both of you for whoever wishes to field it. It's an interesting question. Is it necessary for an innovation team to spin off? Secondly, what do you do when an organization isn't encouraging innovation? How do you handle that?
Okay, that's kind of, so it's not really necessary to do that, to have a spin-off for an innovation. I was working also years to supporting internal teams of innovators and innovation teams in order to support them. I was an innovation manager in Bosch, and I used my power and also my in order to convince other people to convince other people to support their teams. Sometimes it's just necessary that that people hear from other people the reason why they should believe in innovation from their own stuff. So this is just sometimes really necessary, and this is what I have done. So and I saw that these guys really did a fantastic job, and now it's also part of the genes of Bosch home appliances. So that is not really necessary, but sometimes that you have a topic what nobody knows inside your company, and you know exactly if you start with such a topic inside your company, all the people are just trying to find a structure they understand. And if they want to build a structure, then they just copy the structure of your own company. They are working already years inside. So that means that is not really helpful. So in that case, to say, okay, just use for that topic the approach to take a spin-off, take people, they can just find a known way, support them as soon as you can. It's the right way for this innovation. And always say you are responsible for that. You can do what you need, but of course you are part of our corporate. You don't feel lost because you don't see us. That's what I would say about that. On the other point, if you are working in a company that doesn't support innovation, that's personal, meaning what I could say, just say why you are working for such a company. That is my own opinion. In that case, I would say if you are also part of that organization, and when you are not able to turn the organization, what's normally for a single person is very complicated, just to say, make a decision for yourself.
Thank you, Kai. I'd like to thank both of our presenters as well as my co-moderator. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time today, and actually we've run out of time. A few quick notes before we go. Please watch for an email with a link to today's presentation. If you have any questions about Singularity University or are interested in learning how we help leaders of startups and large organizations build exponential capability, please send an email to info@su.org. Again, that's info@su.org. You can also respond to the poll provided on the previous slide. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.